About 100 acronyms. That is roughly how many sit in the back of the official Security Plus objectives, and on exam day, a chunk of your questions are really just asking, do you know which one is which? And here is the trap nobody warns you about. The people who fail this part are usually the ones who studied hardest, because they tried to memorize a flat alphabetical list, and there is a faster way that makes the lookalikes finally pull apart.
I'm Kai, and let me put a number on why the flat list fails. About 100 terms, learned in random order, is 100 separate things to hold. Sort them into 6 groups and you are holding 6 buckets, and your recall on test day roughly doubles. That is the whole move.
So today we are not reading you a glossary. We are going to sort every acronym that matters into 6 families and then drill the exact pairs the exam loves to swap on you, the ones that steal points from people who actually knew the material.
I am Erica, and the families are how the objectives are organized once you step back. Family 1 is identity. Who are you and what are you allowed to touch? Every login term lives here. Family 2 is cryptography and the certificate world, the locks, the keys, and the signatures that prove something is genuine. This is where the most lookalikes hide, so we give it real time.
And here is who this actually helps. Hi all, I'm Bella, and if you have ever frozen on a question because 2 4-letter words looked identical, that is not a you problem, that is a sorting problem. The last 4 families are the protocols you secure, the operations side where you watch and respond, the governance and risk world, and the threats and malware zoo.
Group them this way, and the lookalikes finally pull apart. 6 families. Identity, crypto, protocols, operations, governance, threats. Lock those 6 buckets in, and every acronym you meet has a home before you even define it.
Let me put the whole map on the board so you can see the shape of it, because the picture is what sticks, not my voice listing them. Start with identity at the top, the AAA world. Then crypto and PKI underneath it. Then the secure protocols, then the operations and monitoring stack, then governance and risk, and finally the threat and malware names. 6 bands, and we will fill each one in.
6 bands, and notice the payoff. You do not have to know what a term means to file it. The shape of the word tells you the family, and the family tells you what kind of answer the question wants.
And that is the real exam skill hiding underneath all of this. When a question throws 4 similar acronyms at you, the first move is not to recall a definition, it is to ask which family the question is even in. Is this about who can log in, or about a lock, or about watching the network? Name the family, and 2 of the 4 answers usually fall away before you have read them closely.
Before we drop into Family 1, there is one question that sits under every acronym video on this topic, and Bella, I want to put it to you to frame where we are headed.
Yes, and it is the place to start. The question people keep asking is this: do I have to memorize all 100 acronyms, or just the ones they actually test? Answer that honestly and the whole study plan changes.
Honest answer, you learn the family so every term has a home, and you drill hard on the dozen confusable pairs, because that is where the points actually move. Coming up, the 4-letter terms that are mirror images of each other, the crypto names people swap without noticing, and the one engineering fight even the pros argue over. We open with Family 1, the login family. AAA is the spine of the whole login family. Authentication, authorization, and accounting. Prove who you are, get told what you can do, and have it all logged. Every term in this family is just a different way to run those 3 steps.
And the single most swapped pair on the whole exam lives right here, Radius versus TACACS Plus. People lose this one constantly because both do AAA, so let me give you the differences that actually decide the answer. Radius runs over UDP, and it only encrypts the password. The username and everything else rides in the clear. And it mashes authentication and authorization together into one step. It is the network access protocol, the one behind your Wi-Fi and VPN logins.
TAC Plus is the mirror image, and the contrast is the whole point. It runs over TCP, it encrypts the entire packet, not just the password, and it splits AAA into 3 separate exchanges. That separation is exactly why it is the device administration protocol, the one that gives you per-command control over who can type what on a router.
So here's the mnemonic that makes it stick. TACAC has a T, and T is for TCP and for the whole packet being protected. Radius has no T, so it is UDP and password only. If the question is about administering network devices, that is TACAC plus every time.
Now the Federation Trio, the one people blur together, SAML, OAuth, and OIDC. The clean split is one word each. SAML authenticates. OAuth authorizes. OIDC does both.
Let me make that human, because the words hide a simple idea. SAML is the old enterprise badge that logs you into your work apps once and you are in everywhere. That is single sign-on. OAuth is the valet key. It lets one app reach into another on your behalf without ever handing over your password, like letting a photo printer grab your photos. And OIDC is OAuth with an ID card stapled on, so the app also learns who you actually are.
OIDC is the giveaway when a question needs both at once. If the scenario is about proving identity for sign-on, that is SAML. If it is about granting an app limited access to your stuff, that is OAuth. If it needs both on a modern or mobile app, that is OIDC OAuth with an identity token bolted on.
And underneath every one of those terms sits multi-factor authentication, MFA, which is just combining the three factor types. Something you know, like a password. Something you have, like a phone or a token. And something you are.
And something you are is the one people forget on the exam.
Right, so here is the real thing. This is a biometric reader, and a fingerprint is the textbook something you are factor. It is part of you, so you cannot forget it or leave it at home. That is why the strongest logins pair it with a password you know.
And the exam loves to test whether you can tell the factors apart from lookalikes. A password and a PIN are both something you know, so stacking them is not true multi-factor. Real MFA crosses two different factor types, a password plus that fingerprint, not two of the same kind.
Mandatory access control decides for you, while discretionary access control lets the owner decide, and that is the last cluster in this family, the access control models. These four are a guaranteed question: DAC, MAC, RBAC, and ABAC. The trick is who or what makes the decision.
Discretionary access control means the owner decides, you own the file, you choose who reads it. Mandatory access control means the system decides through labels and clearances, and you cannot override it. That is the one for classified data. Role-based assigns access to a job role. And attribute-based is the flexible one. It weighs several conditions at once: role plus time plus location plus device.
And the one tell that separates the last two, because the exam baits this. One role equals RBAC. A role plus extra conditions, time of day on this network from this laptop, that is ABAC. See more than one condition stacked together, and the answer is attribute-based.
Erica, before we leave identity, there is a question I think a lot of viewers are sitting on, and I would rather we name it out loud than skip past it.
Yes, and it is a fair one, because the words really do sound interchangeable until someone draws the line. The question is this: authentication versus authorization. What is the actual difference when the exam uses them in a sentence? Pin that, and half this family gets easier.
Cleanest split there is. Authentication is proving who you are, the login. Authorization is what you are allowed to do once you are in, the permissions. Authentication always comes first. Authorization decides the rest. Same A and AAA, two different jobs.
And three quick supporting players round out this family. SSO, single sign-on, is logging in once and reaching everything. LDAP is the directory that stores the user accounts those logins check against. And PAM, privileged access management, is the locked cabinet for admin accounts, the keys to the kingdom, checked out only when needed.
And watch the one-letter trap there. SSO is single sign-on, the convenience. SSL is the old name for the encryption that became TLS, which lives in the crypto family, not this one. One letter, two completely different worlds, and that is the exact swap a fast reader gets wrong.
That is the login family locked. Next, we open the one with the most lookalikes of all, the locks and keys, crypto, and the certificate world. Before we keep going, one small favor that actually moves the needle. If this is landing for you, tap like, then subscribe and turn on the bell so you do not miss the rest. 2 taps, completely free, and it pushes this in front of more people who need it.
The crypto family is where the most acronyms live and where the most points get lost, because 3 different jobs all sound like scrambling. Encrypting, exchanging keys, and proving integrity are not the same thing, and the exam knows you blur them. So start with the cleanest split in the whole objective, symmetric versus asymmetric. The entire difference is how many keys.
Symmetric is one shared key for both lock and unlock. AES is the headline name here, and it is fast, so it does the heavy lifting, the bulk data. The catch is getting that one key to the other side safely.
Asymmetric solves exactly that catch with a key pair, a public key and a private key. RSA and ECC are the names. It is slower, so you do not use it for bulk data. You use it to safely exchange the symmetric key and to make digital signatures. The two work as a team. Asymmetric sets up the channel, symmetric moves the data.
And then the one people wrongly file as encryption, SHA hashing. It is one way there is no key, and you can never get the original back. Its job is integrity, proving data was not changed, not hiding it. If a question says hashing protects confidentiality, that is the wrong answer on purpose.
And here is the part that ties all 3 together, because it is the favorite exam combo. A digital signature is just hashing and asymmetric working as a team. You hash the message, then encrypt that hash with your private key. Anyone can check it with your public key, and that proves 2 things at once: that the message was not changed and that it genuinely came from you.
And that second part has its own acronym the exam loves: non-repudiation. Because only your private key could have made that signature, you cannot later deny you signed it. Hashing gives integrity, the private key gives non-repudiation, and together they are a digital signature. That is the whole sentence to memorize.
This pair causes a real fight out in the field, not just on the exam, so I do not think the 4 of us should settle it alone. We called in someone who lives in applied cryptography to give it to us straight. Renata, can you hear us? Quick one for the room. People keep reaching for the strongest, slowest cipher for everything. Is more asymmetric crypto always safer, or is that a mistake?
I can hear you, and grabbing the heaviest lock for everything is exactly the mistake. Asymmetric crypto like RSA is wonderful, but it is slow and it is not built to encrypt large amounts of data.
So strongest everywhere actually means slower and no safer.
Slower and, in a real sense, more fragile. A good design uses asymmetric only to exchange a symmetric key, and then AES does the real work on the bulk data.
So what is the one sentence you want our viewers to carry into the exam on this?
Match the tool to the job. Symmetric for bulk speed, asymmetric for exchange and signatures, hashing for integrity. Confuse those 3 and both your points and real systems break. Thanks for having me on. This was a good one.
That is the verdict I would put on the board. Thank you, Renata. So with the 3 crypto jobs straight, the certificate world snaps into place, because PKI is just the system that delivers and manages these keys at scale.
The names follow the life of a certificate, which is the easy way to hold them. You generate a CSR, a certificate signing request, and send it to a CA, the certificate authority that vouches for you. The CA signs it, and now your browser trusts it. Same story every time.
And the CA almost never signs with its own top-level key directly. There is usually an intermediate CA in the middle, which is why your browser builds a chain, your certificate up to an intermediate, the intermediate up to a root the browser already trusts. Break any link in that chain and you get the scary red warning instead of the padlock.
Then the revocation pair that gets swapped, CRL versus OCSP. A CRL is the bulk list, the whole printed phone book of revoked certificates that the client downloads and searches. OCSP is the live phone call. You ask about one certificate and get an instant answer.
And the mnemonic, the L in CRL, is for list, the long one you download. OCSP has that online in the name. It is the real-time check. List versus live call. Lock those two and the certificate family is essentially done.
2 more cert words show up constantly and they are easy. A wildcard certificate covers every subdomain under one name with a single cert, the star.domain trick. And a SAN, a subject alternative name, is the field that lets one certificate list several specific host names at once. Wildcard is everything underneath. SAN is a named list, and the exam just wants you to know which solves which coverage problem.
Crypto family, locked. Next family is the one with the genuine engineering fight in it, the watch versus block tools, and we are going to settle it as a debate. This family has a real fork in it, the kind security teams actually argue over, so we are going to run it as a debate. The monitoring and operations acronyms and the one underneath all of them, do you just watch the threat or do you block it? 2 letters apart, IDS and IPS, detection versus prevention. Here is what is at stake, because this is not just trivia. One of these can stop an attack in progress and the other only raises its hand. So before anyone picks a side, Kai, lay out the case for detection only, the IDS.
The case for IDS is that it sits out of band on a copy of the traffic so it can never break your network. It watches everything, alerts on what looks wrong, and a human decides. It is the smoke detector. It will not put out the fire, but it also will never accidentally lock you out of your own house, and it never becomes a bottleneck.
And the case for IPS is the obvious objection to that. A smoke detector that only beeps while the house burns is not enough. An IPS sits in line, every packet passes through it, and it can drop the malicious one in real time before the damage lands. Detection that cannot act is just a very well-documented breach.
Push back on that, Kai, because inline sounds strictly better until you have run one. What is the actual cost of putting a device in the middle of all your traffic?
The cost is real. Inline means every packet now depends on that box. A false positive does not just annoy you, it drops legitimate traffic, your own users get blocked, and the device itself becomes a single point of failure and a potential bottleneck. I have seen an aggressive IPS take down a service no attacker ever touched.
All true, and I will concede the failure mode is genuine. But the answer in practice is not to avoid prevention, it is to tune it. You start in detection mode, you learn your normal traffic, and you only promote a rule to block once it is proven not to fire on good traffic. The risk is a tuning problem, not a reason to stay blind.
Hold on, so the disagreement is really about defaults, not about which box is better.
Exactly, and that is why placement is the whole exam answer, not the marketing. Out of band means a copy of the traffic so it can only ever alert. Inline means in the path, so it can act, but it can also fail closed and take the link with it. Memorize those 2 phrases, out of band and inline, and you will get every IDS versus IPS question right.
So let me steer us to the thing the exam actually wants, because both of you are right about your own half. Where does each one win cleanly?
IDS wins where availability is sacred and a false block is unacceptable, and where a skilled team is watching the alerts. Out of band, alert only, no risk to the wire.
IPS wins where a known attack must be stopped automatically and the team cannot watch every alert in real time. Inline, active blocking, accepted tuning cost. And modern appliances increasingly do both, which is why the exam treats them as a spectrum, not enemies.
Then here is the verdict for the board, and it is the sourced one. The single difference the exam tests is placement. IDS is out of band and only alerts. IPS is inline and can block. Detection is safer for availability, prevention is safer against active attacks, and the right answer is whichever the scenario's priority points to. That is the line that earns the point.
And while we are in this family, two more pairs ride the same logic. SIEM versus SOAR. SIEM is the watcher. It collects and correlates the logs and raises the alert. SOAR is the responder. It automates the playbook that acts on that alert. Detection layer, response layer used together exactly like IDS and IPS.
And notice how the whole family rhymes once you sort it. The same watch versus act split shows up 3 times. IDS watches and IPS acts. SIEM watches and SOAR acts. Even a plain log feeds the watcher and the playbook feeds the actor. Learn the pattern once and 4 acronyms fall into place together.
Okay, one more the exam swaps in this family. Host-based versus network-based. Where does that land?
Same idea, different vantage point. An NIDS or NIPS watches the network wire for the whole segment. An HIDS or HIPS lives on one machine and watches that single host. Network sees the traffic, host sees what actually happened on the box. The N is for network, the H is for host, and that one letter is the whole answer.
And the protocol names in this family follow one theme: secure the channel. TLS protects the web and email in transit, IP seconds builds the VPN tunnel, and SSH is your encrypted remote login. DDoS is the attack they all brace against. Same family, same job, keep the data safe on the wire.
Operations family, settled and settled honestly. One family left, the one that scares people most on paper, governance and the threats, and there is a cheat sheet that ties the whole episode together.
The last 2 families look the scariest on paper and are actually the friendliest, because most of them you only need to recognize, not operate. Governance and risk, and the threats and malware names. Let me bring them down to earth. Governance is the paperwork family, the rules and the risk math. And there is exactly one formula in here you must be able to run cold.
Here's the one formula, worked. Single loss expectancy times the annual rate of occurrence equals annual loss expectancy. One laptop lost is worth $2,000, that is your SLE. You lose 3 a year, that is your ARO. 2,000 times 3 is $6,000 a year, your ALE.
And that $6,000 number is the whole reason these acronyms exist on the exam. It is what justifies a security budget. The exam will hand you 2 of the 3 and ask for the 3rd, so memorize the formula, not just the words.
And the frameworks are just names to recognize and pair with their purpose. The NIST Cybersecurity Framework, now version 2 from 2024, organizes everything into 6 functions. Those functions are govern, identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover, and govern is the one that is new in version 2. ISO 27001 is the international certification, SOC2 is the audit report, PCI DSS is for credit cards, and GDPR is European privacy.
And do not overstudy these. For the frameworks family, you mostly need to recognize the name and match it to its one job. Credit cards, that is PCI DSS. European privacy law, that is GDPR. A third-party audit report on a service provider, that is SOC2. The exam asks which one fits the scenario, not what is on page 40 of the standard.
Then the threat family, the malware shorthand, which is honestly the most fun because the names are vivid. An APT is an advanced persistent threat, a patient, well-funded attacker who lives in your network for months. ARAT is a remote access Trojan, the malware that hands an attacker the keyboard. C2 is the command and control server it phones home to. An IOC is an indicator of compromise, the fingerprint you hunt for. And DLP is data loss prevention, the guard that stops data from walking out the door.
And one warning on this family because the exam baits a specific mix-up. ARAT, a remote access Trojan, is the malware. RBAC, role-based access control, is a defensive model from the identity family. One letter of overlap, opposite worlds. Read fast under pressure, and that swap costs a point, which is why sorting by family protects you. The Trojan and the access model can never live in the same bucket.
Let me make this concrete with one person. because the whole point of today is that this is a sorting problem, not an intelligence problem. Picture Marcus, a brand new security analyst with 2 weeks until his exam. Marcus knew it cold, but on his first practice test, he froze on a question asking which protocol to use to administer a router, and he picked Radius. He got it wrong, not because he did not know it, but because he had memorized a flat list and the two terms blurred. The day he sorted them into families and drilled the pairs, that whole category of mistake disappeared.
Which is the real lesson of this entire episode, and it is worth saying plainly. The fix is to sort, then drill the confusable pairs. The acronyms are not hard. Telling the lookalikes apart is the hard part, and that is a skill you build by sorting and drilling, not by rereading the list a 10th time.
And do not just stare at that cheat sheet, run reps on it. Cover the answer column, read the trigger, and say the answer out loud before you check. 20 minutes of that beats 2 hours of rereading the glossary, because you are practicing the exact move the exam tests.
And if confusing the pairs is how points get lost, then drilling the pairs is how they get won back. That is the whole game, and it is completely in your control.
If you carry one idea out of here, make it this. The acronyms are never the hard part. Telling the lookalikes apart is, and that is a sorting skill you can win on purpose. 6 families, a dozen pairs, 1 habit. So here is the whole episode in one breath. Do not memorize 100 acronyms in a flat list. Sort them into 6 families, then drill the dozen confusable pairs, because that is where the points actually move.
Here is your move tonight. Write the 4 cheat sheet pairs on 1 card and quiz yourself out loud before bed. You walk into the exam with recall, not a vague memory of a list.
Next time we take the crypto family all the way down to the metal in a real terminal. Wait until you see a live certificate chain read line by line the moment PKI stops being words.
If this finally made the lookalikes pull apart for you, subscribe, because we are building the whole Security Plus series this way, one confusing topic at a time. And the free practice quizzes that drill these exact pairs are waiting at certs.professorerica.com. Before we go, one for the comments, and it is the honest one. Which single pair of acronyms trips you up the most, and which mnemonic from today are you actually going to use? Tell us below, because your answer helps the next person study.
That covers everything I wanted to make sure landed today.
Progress loves a checklist. Check 1 box today.
Chris crushed it today. 9 out of 10, only because I am a tough grader. This is Professor Erica. Thanks for watching and signing off.